Hi everyone, this is the second of 3 videos about our indexing assignment. The first one we talked about indexing in general and went through the guided tour, and then on this one we're going to talk about doing indexing for real. So let's just get started. To get to the indexing, you can either click on the link in the assignment, which will take you either to Family Search if you're already logged in, or through a login page first and then to Family Search, and you'll be brought to this page here. This is the web indexing page. If you're in Family Search anywhere else, you can just click on this top menu bar and hit indexing and web indexing, and you'll get to the same page. Before you start indexing for real, I recommend strongly that you click on Help Resources, scroll down below this guided tour that we talked about last time, and review this basic indexing guidelines document. This is a set of instructions for indexing in general that are the default instructions for how to do it. What do you do with names? What do you do with places and so forth? Project instructions for a particular project might differ. It does say here that in places, unless otherwise directed in the project instructions, you do it this way. But if you understand these guidelines, you'll have a better idea of what you're supposed to do with the various images that you look at and then the information that's on them, so that it's less intimidating when you're actually doing it. So read those first. Okay, so now we're back. We'll go back to the web indexing page. To find a batch to work on, you click on Find Batches. You'll be taken to this screen here, which gives you a list of all the available batches. You can select difficulty level and language. If you're just starting with indexing, I would say start with the beginning. If English is your native language, do English. If you have another language as your native language, you might consider trying a batch in your own language. That might be easier for you. There seem to be more beginning batches in English than in other languages, at least when I've looked at it, that's been the case. But you might just look and see if something in your language might be easier than English. One thing to notice is that if your language isn't here, it still might be there, because there might be documents in your language, because sometimes documents in one language are categorized as a group with some other languages. For example, if you look at Russian here, and I'll take off the beginning. Russian, we've got 3 projects. This looks to me to be Russian. It might be Ukrainian. I don't know the language I don't know the language period. But I know, for example, that these 2 items are not Russian. This is Czech and this is Hungarian. So if I was a Hungarian speaker and I would look here and I don't see Hungarian, well, I do see Hungarian, never mind. I might not see Hungarian, I don't see Czech up here, then look in a language that is close to the area of the region where your language is from, and you may find a batch in the language that you're looking for. But anyway, let's stick with English for now. I want a beginning batch. I'll pick this World War I draft cards from Indiana. To start any batch, you click on Index, and that'll take you to the page where the images are. Now, the first thing you should always do on any batch is to read the project instructions, just so you understand what is involved in this project. This one shows you a sample draft card. It explains what this project is about. It gives you, this is a very nice thing, if your project instructions include this, it shows you how to index what you're doing. It gives you a sample. Here's a sample draft card. Here are the fields they're looking for over here, numbered, and then you can look at the boxes. Number 1 is a given name, number 2 is a surname. You can see exactly where the information is that they're looking for. So that's very helpful. So read the project instructions. Now, one thing you can see here that we didn't see on the guided tour is the control panel for these images, because it was hidden on the guided tour. So plus is make it bigger, minus is make it smaller. You can adjust the image, adjust the contrast or the brightness. If something needs to be rotated, you have that option. If you'd rather see it in black background with white print, you can do that. Or if you like normal white background, black writing, that's available too. So those are available. Up here is a toolbar A lot of these things are also in this menu here. The one thing I would point out mainly is international characters are available if you're doing a record in some other language or an international character is used. You can pull up this box and you can pick, whatever letter you might need that's written in another language. That's very helpful. The first thing you do on, for every field that's to be indexed, there will always be field help, which is accessed by the question mark button. And the first time you do a batch or a project, read the instructions for the field, because that'll tell you exactly what they're looking for in any particular question, and you need to know those details. The first thing they have you do on any project is you'll see all the documents down here at the bottom that you're to index, but they want to know, do these images that we have microfilmed here, are they actually images that have information on them that need to be indexed? Do they have some person's details on them? Or is it a title page, a blank page, or some other image that doesn't have anybody on it, so we don't care about that page? If it's got somebody's information on it, then this index should be indexed and you would answer yes. So we go through that exercise for all the images first before we go back to the first one and then start pulling the information out. So this does, and I'm just going to click through very quickly. If I see somebody's name, it has somebody's information on it, so it should be indexed. And so click, 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 and we're back at the beginning. So now, to index something, then what we're doing is we're looking for the information that is asked for in each field. And again, it's a good idea to have give this field help up. If you click on it once and leave it up, it'll change as you go from field to field, so that's handy. So this is given names. Here's the name in full. Jennings, I can't read this very well, but for this purpose of this video, I'm not going to worry about whether I'm right or not. I'm not going to save this data. So if I was doing this for real, I would take my time to actually try to figure the letters out, but I'm just going quick. The one thing to note is when you're typing names in here, you're not supposed to put Mr., Mrs., Junior. If the name was blank or field is blank here, you would hit Control-B to mark the field blank. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes you just hit Tab to skip an empty field. But that's one reason why you need to read those instructions, see exactly what you're supposed to do with it. Birth month is September, and that's a drop-down field, so we just pick September. 15th, 1897, and we'll scroll down to get birth town or country. Sometimes they may not have a birth town or country, in which case, county, state, country, in which case you would leave it blank. Now this one happens to have a county, Marion County, and it could be should type in the CO, but again, I'm not going to take the time to read the instructions because I don't want to run out of time for the video, so I'm just going to do the best I can. United States is the way we write that. That's in the instructions. Citizenship country. So this says, I am a native of the United States. So, or otherwise, what nation are you a citizen or subject to? So United States is the country. Relatives given name. Okay, that's down at the bottom. It's name of nearest relative. It said before not to spell out abbreviations. That's probably Charles, but I'm going to write Chaz. That's what they wrote it as. Sometimes they will have the relationship written in parentheses here. There's not a field for it, but sometimes people would write father, wife, whatever. Now, we said before you don't include titles. If it was a wife, it might be Mrs. Jennings Kennepy, and that would be the way they'd write the name. In that case, you'd leave off the Mrs. and you would just write Jennings Kennepy, which is a little odd to our modern sensibilities, but that's the way it was done, so that's the way we'll write it. If it was Mrs. Jennings Kennepy, you would assume that's the wife, but we don't assume. it says here, type the relationship, do not assume a relationship for another information. So in that case, we would leave, in this one, there is no relationship written. If that one, if it didn't say wife, you don't assume it. So it says if there's blank, then you hit tab to skip this field. Tab. Residence place of the relative. I can't read that very well. And so I'm just going to make my best guess for this purpose. If I was doing it for real, I would do a lot more, be a lot more careful about reading the letters, but I don't want to waste your time. Okay, do you see any more information on this image index? That would be the case if you were looking at a project where you had multiple lines of data with one person per line, and you're looking at an image of a page that's got a bunch of lines of it with different people on it. In that case, each line would be a separate entry, and so you would create a new entry for that data. In that case, it's also interesting to note there is a ruler here, show ruler, that gives you a yellow, usually, well, take my word for it. On those sort of batches where you have lines of data, there's a nice yellow ruler that will come up that you can move around the screen so you can see keep track of which line you're on. But anyway, we're not going to create a new entry, so we'll hit next image and go on from there. Now let's say, for example, for this case, I'm not going to go on further, but let's say, for example, you're working on a project, and you don't have to finish the whole batch at once. You can click on this button to go back to web indexing. It'll save where you are. And the same thing is if you don't like this batch, you can't read the writing. It's frustrating to you. We don't want you to be frustrated. If you find a batch and you don't like it, just get out of it. So we'll use the little arrow here to get out of it, or if the toolbar is not showing, you can go up here to batch and go back to web indexing. But either way, let's just go back to web indexing, and you'll see that this batch that we were working on is here in my list. That means I can come back later, open the batch, work on it some more. If I hate this one, I don't want to work on it anymore, then you can hit manage and select it, and you can return it. And somebody else can do it, because I don't want to look at that one anymore. It frustrated me. But that's indexing. You're supposed to do 3 hours worth. In the next video, I'll talk about how you report your progress, or that report that you did the 3 hours. And that'll be on the next video. But this can be a very fulfilling and fun activity to do. So like I say, if you get frustrated with something, just go find a different batch, because this should be enjoyable. And I think you'll find that it is. See you in the next video.